Okay, so this is my first stream. Hopefully things are working correctly. I see my preview here, which has got a nice little delay, so that's fun. But at least I know that things are connected and working. Hopefully the audio is coming through nicely. And yeah, everything is working well. So today what I want to do is I've been exploring Nuxt Server Components and figuring that out. And they're currently experimental, but I want to dive into them and figure them out because they've been around for a while and I have not yet had a chance to actually test them out. So that's what I've been doing this week. And so I thought, it might be fun to actually build something with them and not just do these funny little experiments, which is what I have been doing. I find that's like the best way to learn. I can maybe show that if I can open this up. So I've been working on Nuxt Tips Collection, which is like a follow-up to the View Tips Collection books that I've got. And so part of that I wanted to not just pull from my existing experience and the things that I already know, but take a look at all of the other features that Nuxt has and has been adding. The team has been adding so many things over the last months and year in Nuxt 3 that it's hard to keep up as someone who's educating and dive into each new feature and like understand it in a way that I can teach it and then move on to actually teaching it. Anyways, I've been playing around with server components. And so the way that I like to do that is generally by just trying out different things, sort of like different test cases, basically. So that's what I've been doing. Trying out Nuxt Island, changing out props, changing out fallbacks, because Nuxt Island has a little fallback slot. Nuxt Client fallback component, which is another experimental feature. Then different things with like, you can have two components. You can split up your logic between the server-side rendered one and the client-side rendered one. You can do things with slots. So just seeing like, how do we do this? How does it work? I'm going to switch my windows around here because my face is on the wrong side. Okay, that might be better. So I've been doing some different things here and experimenting and trying to figure out, okay, if you put server components inside of the slot of a regular component or a client-side only component, what happens? Does it work as we expect? And all that kind of stuff. And client-side pages, server-side pages do different things, and there's some limitations there. Some things that are either bugs in the implementation or more likely just misunderstandings on my part. So I've been doing that. And that's not what this stream is about. So let's actually get into some more interesting stuff. So I don't have much of a plan with this. I'm just going to make it up as I go. That's my plan. We're going to make Wordle, but we're going to do it in Nuxt, and we're going to do server components. So my thought here is that we don't need page routing, and so we can just put everything in this app.view component. And so I've got Tailwind extension set up. I like that because it just makes everything a little bit nicer. I'm not going to try to make this too pretty, but we will at least we'll see how far we get with everything. I don't know exactly how long I'm going to stream for. I think YouTube is going to limit me to an hour. but I actually don't know about that. And I have my mic arm is in like a funny spot, so I have to like look around it if I want to, you know, double check if people are able to see what's going on my screen and all that. So, all right. Yeah, if you're able to see what's going on, just, yeah, if you could say so in the chat, that would be great. That would give me some feedback that things are actually going through. But otherwise, I'll just carry on here. So we have our Vuedle. We're going to start with probably creating some components. And so the main logic here is, so we have a keyboard interface that we need to build. We need to have the actual logic set up. We have this grid of squares here, and that's where we enter in the words. And then we can implement the logic on the server. So one interesting thing about the server components is that, and I guess my face is in the way here. So we're going to have to, maybe it was better the way it was before. Maybe I can get my face onto the other side of the screen. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to drag my face over. There we go. And yeah, flip me around. Okay. Now things are working. Okay, I do have a different scene set up in this software, but you know, it doesn't work, of course, as soon as you go live and actually need it to work. So we've got a few things we need to build. We have this component that's sort of like the input here with the keyboard. And then we have this main thing here, and we've got all of the logic for the game happening. So without server components, you can do everything client-side, of course, and that's the way that I believe Wordle was originally implemented, and why people were able to steal the word list and figure out and cheat, because everything was done client-side. But the interesting thing with server components is that we can do all of the rendering on the server, so we don't have to expose that. We can have all the logic and everything inside of a component. We don't actually need to use server routes to do this if we don't want to. We can just have it all, you know, on inside of a component. And so we don't have to worry as much about that kind of thing. So let me start with, let's build out a keyboard component. And do I want to make this server side already, or do I want to make it client side and then refactor it to be server side? I don't know. But we'll start with this. And so let's see here. For some reason it doesn't, yeah, okay. So tailwind styles are being applied. Okay, just double checking that we're actually getting those in there. So for my keyboard, I want to render out all of these keys, so that's going to be a little bit tedious. Maybe we can do this as a nested array or something like that. Will this, okay, great. GitHub Copilot to the rescue. Saves me from all this horrible tediousness. And is there like a backspace emoji? Yeah, okay. We'll just do that because why not? I don't want to have to deal with icons or anything like that right now. Emoji work. So we'll do, how do we want to do this? Maybe something like that. We will try and center everything and put max width. Actually, I don't want to do margin here. I would rather do it all here. Actually, I want the entire thing to be done like that. Okay, zoom in on the editor. Thanks for letting me know, John. Is this better if I do that? So there's a bit of a delay between, you know, from the live streaming. I'm not sure how much delay between me and the chat there is. So hopefully, hopefully it hasn't been too long for you. Okay. So we've got our keys set up. We will do some sort of container here. I'm not sure what I want to do with that. We will make each row. Yeah, that's okay. But each key I actually want to be a button. And maybe we just need to restart that for it to pick up the new keyboard component that we made. Okay, so we've got some keys and I need to move them into flex row. And I'm doing something wrong here. Why is it staying as a flex column? I'm going to remove the server part here just to make sure that we're getting some hot module reloading. I'm not 100% sure. I think it should reload correctly. See, this is one of the problems with live coding things is that, especially when you haven't figured it out ahead of time. I mean, it's more fun this way to figure it out on the fly, but why is it not working this way? It should. I thought the flex was row by default anyway. So we're going to have to figure out why this isn't working the way that I want it to. So we've got this flex component here. We have our row. Oh, of course, the rows. Yeah, in the row. The rows have to be in columns, and then the columns have to be in rows. So then I need to put the class on here. Flex Okay. There we go. Except now, I didn't even notice that it styled it already for me as similar to how Wordle is done. That's funny. Maybe I'll throw a font bold on there, make it even closer. Now, did it just do that by default, or did it somehow know that's what I'm going for? So this is column, this is flex row, so it should be displaying each row as a column, like in column form. Do I need to do... I shouldn't need to do flex wrap, should I? I guess I do, okay. And we'll do items justify center. Okay. You know, I don't think I've ever really used flex wrap all that much. It usually seems to work already. And I have this max width on here, so maybe I don't know exactly what's going on here. Typo on the... okay. That's what it is. Typo on this attribute. Thanks, Tim, for that. I probably should get I thought I have an extension for Tailwind that lets me like auto... Yeah, it auto completes, but it doesn't tell me when I've got typos. So that's probably something I should work on. Okay, so now we need the item center and not justify center because I have the correct one in there. Okay, so we have our keyboard laid out. And now the next thing we want to do is set up some sort of interactivity on this. So all that we need to do for now is add on a button here. We'll make this a button. And then we will do a click. Call that click. And then we should be able to click on this. I'm not sure how I feel about it passing around this emoji as a click value, a key value, but I mean, it should be fine. Okay, so we're just gonna quickly check that things are working as they should. And we'll just console log this guy out. All right. Yeah, and then we get this this funny like emoji here. So that'll be interesting. I don't think that should cause any issues though. We can deal with that later though. All right. So why are we getting emit key? It's giving us the pointer event as well as the actual value. All right. Okay, so the next thing is set up the other UI element. We're gonna have to do a whole bunch of like conditional stuff in here eventually to, like, as we select letters on here, we have to gray them out when they've been used and show when they are like in the word but in the wrong spot. And then we have to, I think we have to show them when they're green as well. I don't actually play Wordle that often, so hopefully I don't mess up the rules on that. But I mean, it's pretty straightforward, the rules for the game. So yeah, let's get onto that component. We will do, I don't know what this should be called, word grid. And similar thing, we're gonna have, okay, so if we think about this for a moment, we're gonna have a bunch of words, and we're going to want to specify which words, an array of words, but then each letter is going to, we need to like figure out which, like the coloring for these things. But we don't need to supply that along with each word because we can figure that out if we know the correct word. So if we have an array of guesses and then the correct word, we should be able to do everything we need to in this component. So we'll figure that out. We'll see how close GitHub Copilot got on that, and then refactor from there. I don't need, I think it's just copying the logic from the other one. Okay, it's not what we want. So we have, I guess I need to set this to TypeScript. So we're going to have words, guesses actually. And then the answer is a string. We can implement the logic later. Okay, we're going to do word grid. Let's say our guesses are, I guess it would be, yeah, I want to keep it as a string because an array of characters seems like a bad, it just seems like more work than it's worth. Okay. Vue.js is not a real word, technically, but that's not going to stop us. So we're going to actually create these boxes. We're going to do a basic border around them. We want them to be square. So we actually want a grid And we don't need a button. We also need to split this up into the characters. And I think I can nest, I wonder if I can do this. And then I can do a V4 on there. I don't want the letter to be the key because that's not going to work. We have to like make it guess letter. And then we don't want that. And then we move that down. And okay, so the next thing is to center these guys. So far, this hasn't been as much Nuxt or Vue kind of, well, I mean, it's been Vue-y, but, you know, got to set up the whole UI first. I'm going to make this flex so that I can just do this. But yeah, we want this to be square. So I think what I'm going to do is just hard code that. That's way too big. I don't know what I was thinking. Also too big. Also, I'm way zoomed in, so I'm gonna, yeah, maybe it wasn't too big. Okay. We'll do 20. Then I'll zoom in a bit more, and there we go. So the next step for us here, maybe I can turn on word wrap. There we go. So that you all can see what is going on here. Okay, so we have our letters. Gap. Oh, that's what's going on. There's padding and margin that I didn't need. There is, I don't know what this extra spacing is. I want it to be as tight as it can be. So to do that, how do I want to make that happen? Because right now it's just expanding to fill the space. You know, live coding and figuring things out as you go is, you know, it is more difficult than just working on things by yourself. I will say that. What is the best way for me to do this? I'm going to work on this, some other styling here while I figure out how that works. We'll do gray, text white, XL. That seems about right. We can put some padding, some spacing in between these two guys here so we don't have to stare at them squashed together the whole time. Yeah, MX Auto with max width class. Yeah, I think that should work. I think I need to, do I need to have an extra div to do that then? Max width. Of course I missed that end tag. Oh, it's because I have hard-coded widths on here. I think that's part of it. Because if I do max width small, is it just gonna like bust out of its container here? Yeah. Well, I mean, that works for now. So we'll have to just deal with that. The guess letter, yeah, multiple letters in one word would break this. So I will do the index thing. Yeah. I think that'll work. It didn't seem to break it here with this, with these two T's though, but yeah, it wouldn't work. They would have the same key. So we want to have different letters, different keys. Any other sort of styling things? Yeah, I don't like the way that this width thing is set up. But if I do it this way, if I made this, if I set this container to be a max width, but then we need to have an empty guesses. How many guesses do you get? And then I have to, yeah, this is not a good way of doing it either. Huh. Let's see what GitHub Copilot wants to do. Aspect. Oh yeah, okay. Aspect square. There we go. Okay. I knew that was a thing. I don't think I've ever used that style before, but it's nice to know that it's there. And one of the things that I like about these LLMs is that they know all sorts of things that would just be impossible to remember. And so, how big do I want this? So then when you actually go to, yeah, it'll tell you, even if you don't like the exact implementation that it gives you, you can take that knowledge and apply it in a different way. Okay, so the keys are too small. Keys are too small and the squares are too big. But we will do a couple adjustments and then we'll move on because there's no point in wasting extra time on styling when you don't need it. Okay, so these keys are going to be maybe text XL as well. And a bit more padding. Okay. Great. These have this border, though I don't like that. Okay. Now we have to hook these things up and put the business logic together. Well, we have some work we can do on these UI components. Why don't I figure out the colors of this word grid? So we have two things we need to figure out. Oh yeah, the $ emit without define emits. I think sometimes I just honestly forget that define emits is a thing because that's, I don't know why I forget, but I just do it and then, I mean, it works, I guess. I'm not sure if there are any downsides to it. I mean, you don't document what you're actually doing in your component, so that's not always great. And you don't get the types, but that works. So, okay, so the two things we need to do are figure out which letters are in the answer and which are in the correct location. So figuring out the letters that are in the word is pretty straightforward because you can just do like a split on all the characters and then check if the letter's in that array. Checking for the correct position is a little bit more work because we need to keep the index. But it's actually not too much work because we can just step through each guess letter by letter and then compare it to we can compare it to the answer character by character. So guesses with what do we want to call this? Guesses with metadata. That's a terrible name. Guesses. I don't know. Guesses with colors. We'll rename that. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time figuring that out. Okay. Guesses, stop map each guess. We're going to split, and then we're going to map each letter. If the answer includes the letter, so that's not quite right because it only is checking if we include the letter, but we also need to check the actual index. And we also want to return the actual letter so we know. Okay, so we can do a couple things here. So we can say included and correct position. Okay. So that should be right. And now I need to actually process this better. Okay, so guess. So is this going to give us back the right thing? So we're mapping, and then we're going to split and map again. So we should be able to just do a straight V4 now that we've... no. For guess in... Guess, and then the letter in guess. Then we have to do guess. Okay, we can't just do... Oh, we have to do guesses with colors. V4. Okay. This is how I typically develop. I just log things out because sometimes it's easier to... Oh, of course, props. That's why. And answer is not defined either because I didn't do that correctly. And then, okay. So I did have this correct, I believe. There we go. And then, so we'll change our, so, okay, we are keeping our text white, but we're going to change our background class. We'll do that dynamically here. And this is wrong. We're going to do BG gray. $700. We'll do, this is yellow. This is like a sad beigey yellow, and this is a more fun yellow. I'm just going to say that. I don't know who decides on what the colors should be for the Wordle game, but okay. So if we change our guesses, what's a word that we can put in? We can do, well, obviously if we put Vue.js in, that's going to be correct along the whole way. And then we want to actually have a better test case here. If we did, it's not a valid, it's not a valid guess, but you know, we can at least test these things. Okay, I think that's the logic there. And the nice thing about this is that it's just like straight UI logic. Actually, I'm going to move this class to, we'll do that. We'll make a function that we'll call, because I don't like having that in my template. Oh. Okay. So now we have that nicely factored out. And then what else do I want to do? A real word. How do we check if it's a real word? I don't actually know. I think that there might be only a certain number of 5-letter words. Okay. Yeah, 158,000 words with 5 letters. So, I mean, you could have an entire dictionary for that, but that seems crazy. Oh, there's like a Wordle solver. So Wordle has 2,309 words that are believed to be potential solutions. So yeah, of course they're only using a subset of words. It's probably that there's, you know, 2,000 or 3,000 words that are actually commonly used, and then other words that are technically true or technically words and then like are never used, or, you know, were used until 100 years ago or something like that. I don't know. In this case, I think I'm just not going to worry about that, and we'll just, as long as it's 5 letters, we'll let you input it. But the thing is, we also don't even have an exclamation mark button, so you wouldn't be able to input it at all. All right, so we've got some of these things working. We've got our keyboard. Our keyboard won't let us check. I guess we have to do the same kind of, the same check with the keyboard as well. So we could make a composable for us to check that. Yeah, because these colors are changing in the same way that we change them here. So we could just create a composable for that. We could also put it in this app component here, but I don't want to do that, because then what ends up happening is we want to make these server rendered components. And so the logic to choose like which is the right answer, the answer never actually makes it to the client. So we can prevent cheating in that way. And if we have it, all that logic in this app component here, that's going to make that impossible. So I think I will create a composable. And I'm going to, what am I going to call it? Use guesses, or it's not a composable. I just need a utility method. That's what I need, because we don't need any reactivity at all in there, do we? Well, I guess. Yeah, we might as well. Yeah, okay. I'm going back. I'm changing my mind again. We're going to use guesses. We're going to have guesses as a string, answer as a string, and we will that's not what I want. It's okay. We're not counting guesses. We are going to grab basically this. but we're going to change some things around because we don't have props. Okay, so, and this is not, we need to do this as a ref. And is it going to complain about the ref type? Nope, okay. Processed guesses, okay. So guesses.value.map. And guesses, why would it have implicitly have an any type? Wouldn't it be just a string because it's a value here? I don't know. Honestly, my knowledge of TypeScript is like barely passing, and I should probably just decide to learn it at some point, but I haven't. Also, it's giving me weird errors still that are not okay. It's giving me weird errors that should not be there. Okay. That doesn't need a value because it's not a ref. Processed guesses. And then we'll return processed guesses. Okay, now we can do guesses with colors equals use guesses, and that's broken it. So we'll see what's going on here. Our trusty console log. Ah, internal error. Yeah, because we're not checking for undefined, but we shouldn't have an undefined here. What am I doing wrong? Props.guesses, props.answer, use guesses. Okay, so on the we're getting a server error because of what? We're trying to map in our word grid. But then, our word grid, we're like the guesses is defined, so I don't know why we're doing this way. I'll have to dig into this one while I let my tea get cold. Okay. So these error messages are somewhat useful. It tells me which component it is. Line 31, but I don't think that's actually line 31. It doesn't relate exactly to the single file component, I don't think. But then it doesn't tell me what the maybe it's that this guest. No, it's yeah. It doesn't tell me what is happening. It doesn't tell me the actual error. Okay, in the console it does. Okay, use guesses 6. Cannot read properties of undefined map. Okay. Oh, I guess it's not really. Right. These are not actually refs. So I guess, so TypeScript is going to get angry at me for a bit. Right. Okay. Yeah. Props are funny that way because the type is not, it's not a ref. What is the type of define props? Maybe if I check out the GitHub, I can figure that out. Nope. There we go. Define props. Because I always find that, and this might be tricky to figure out quickly because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on and I can sort of read TypeScript. So read only. Yeah, that makes sense because it's props. But are props actually refs or is it just a reactive object that's non-ref? I think in my head I always think about them as refs, and so then, but obviously like you don't use them with the dot value, so they're not refs, and I know that. I just think that they're refs. But then if I type them here, then what type do I put them as? Because they're not refs, do I put them as like reactive? I guess I could do like a maybe ref thing. And then I can do this. And then they are refs. And then I can do it this way. Otherwise, I don't really know what to type these as. What do you type? What is the type of props? Yeah, I can define them as string and array in there, and it would work. But the problem is that props are not just strings and arrays. They're strings. It's a string and an array of strings that are reactive, that'll like update. And so it's nice to have that information in there, because if you define a composable like this and your types as inputs and even outputs, I guess, but if the inputs are not reactive at all, then really you've just created a utility, and any reactive code you have in there won't actually do anything because there's nothing to react to. Okay, now we can do the same thing with our keyboard. So I'm going to pipe in the guesses and the answer. At some point, we'll have to move this around so that we don't end up having that logic in the root component there. That's not TypeScript, so that's why I get that error. And then we define our keys, and then guesses with colors. We're going to do the same thing. But actually, the guesses are not... Oh man, okay, I should have thought this through a bit more. The actual keys here are going to be different. Actually, we just need to take the guesses with colors, and we need to do letters with colors. And in theory, that's not correct, I don't think. In theory, because we've got, these are just, it's just a collection of letters, so we can just like go through each of these letters and figure out what this should be from that. So I'm going to make sure that I got this array. So yeah, we can see that we've got this array here of different letters, while true. The problem is that we've got we have multiple letters in here. So I don't know how does Wordle handle it if you get the correct word. I'm just going to have to play a little bit. Does it show green in here, or does it not do that? Because you can't, because if you have multiple letters, one of them might be in the correct location and one of them might not. Oh man. So I've got maybe I can just find Wordle screenshots and cheat in that way. Okay, so it does show the green in there. So I'm going to have to figure out how I want to handle that. Do I just try and find one that does? If it is in the correct position, then I will, yeah, I must have to do it that way. Okay. So I cannot just do a flat there. I have to grab the letters, but then I need to merge all the letters. I feel like there's got to be a better way of doing this. But this way it should be that we get if one of them is true, then eventually it'll overwrite any false. That's not what I wanted. Letter has already been declared, of course. And I just ruined all this logic by overriding it. Okay. Let's undo this again. And we're just going to use L. Okay. So then now let's see what we get for this guy. Woo. Assignment to a constant variable. Yeah. Well, merged letters. Okay. We'll return merged letters for now, and then we will figure it out. Okay. So if we look at, so this E is in the word but not correct. This E is correct. So when we look at E, it should be correct position, and that is correct. So that seems to be working the way that we want it to. It's merging and getting it all in there. Great. So when we take the merged letters, then we want to I guess have the same kind of thing here. We're going to have this color function. Maybe we turn that into a utility. But then we want to make sure that this is properly reactive. So if I just throw this get color function in here and I get it to check, then is that going to be reactive? If I pass in the letter, so here we want to get color. We're going to have the letter as just the character. we're going to need to find the letter. And then I think that should work. But this won't be reactive. So I need to actually make this a computed. So I'm going to make a, yeah, okay. So letters with colors, we're going to just take this logic out. And it's not too much duplication. So we're going to go return keys map.row, and then we're going to map each key. We're going to look at merged letters. And we're not just going to add, we're not going to add that. Actually, we're just going to return the letter and the color, the background class. That's what I think we should do. So we'll do let color is peachy gray, and then if we'll reset we'll do color equals this, and then color equals this. So you're asking what ACC means, and so here we've got we're doing a reduce. So the first value in the reduce is it's called an accumulator. It's a dumb term, but basically it's for reduce. We're going to go through every single letter here, and we're going to start with this empty object. And for each letter in this array, we're going to accumulate different things onto there. So we're gonna, for each letter, we get passed in the letter that we're on, and then this accumulator object. And so then we can go letter by letter and accumulate onto that object. So in this case, what this means is we are first going to see if we've added that letter to this object. And so at first we don't have anything in there because it's empty. So this doesn't exist. So we go over here and we just set the accumulator to be that letter object. So that's what we get here. So when we first come on this E, we're going to use the letter E as the key here, and then we're going to set this letter object as the value. And so then we get this whole object here. Then the next time we come around and we see an E object, we're going to check again. We have an E, and we're going to look at this accumulator object, and we're going to look in the E key. We find that there is an E key, an E object already there. So we grab that. Then when we get down here, we're going to say, okay, we've already got an E. So we're not just going to override what we've already got. We're going to update that one. So if we've already got this included value, we're either going to, if it's already true, then we're going to leave it as true. But if not, we're going to override it with true if this new value is true. And so we do that for this one as well. So What this does is every time we see a new letter, we add it in to the array. No updates necessary. We're just going to treat that as the only one because it's the only one we've seen. But then when we come around to seeing the letter a second time, then, well, a second time or a third time or a fourth time, then we're going to go in here and we're actually going to compare and update. And so that lets us go, because when we go through these letters here, we're going to go across like this, and the first E that we get to is included in the answer, but not in the correct position. So then we set that as the object, but then when we get to this one, this correct position is also true. So we need to override that so that when we get down here to this object, we have both of these values as true. And so there are ways of doing that with for loops and stuff, but I like using reduce. Some people hate it, and yeah, just use whatever you like. And this, yeah, ACC accumulator, I don't know, it must just be people use it for historical reasons or something. There's probably better ways of doing it. Could probably just rename this to letters object or something. And it would make more sense. So that was more than what you asked for, but hopefully that's useful to someone. Okay, getting back to our thing here, we've got, now we have this object. Of course we have an object, we don't have, so I reduced this. Now we don't have an array, we have an object. And so I can just do object.values merged letters. No. I was confusing myself. Keys is, all right, okay. So we map through the row, then for each row we map through each key, then we're going to find the color. So by default, it's going to be BG gray 500 if we're in the correct position. Then great, we're going to set it to green. Otherwise, if we're only included but not in the correct position, then we can set it to yellow. And then we will return letter key. We don't need the whole object on there, so we'll just keep the color. And then now our letters with color. Letter is not defined. Oh, key. Oh, I need to find the letter. Okay. Const letter, merge letters, key. Yeah, okay. That's good. So we have our colors now. If there's a double letter in the solution, that's a good question. I think that the logic for whether it's included or not will still hold up, because we're just checking if it's in there. The correct position, I think it will be correct still, because if we have one at the beginning and the end, then if your guess is in the right spot, it should work. Okay. So we can test this. If we have, so if we say the answer is truth, but you guessed trust, then that doesn't work. Okay, nope, I was wrong. So apparently we are doing this wrong. So the correct position, so is this incorrect, or am I, the way that I'm using the correct position, is that wrong? Well, I'm just using these guesses with colors from here, so then that would, you would guess that that would be wrong. Okay, so let me double check to see what I'm getting here. Okay, so if I come down to this one, yes, so it says it's in the correct position, but in fact, it is not. Because we've set truth is the correct one, so that last T here should be yellow. Oh, because I'm not checking the index of, it should be using this index, I think. But now this one's wrong. So that's not good. No, because we're trying to find the letter, and we're only going to return the first occurrence of it. So then we need to actually just check if that equals letter. Okay, there we go. That makes sense. So we're going to use the index of where this where the letter is in the actual word, that index. Then we're going to take the answer. We're going to find that letter at that exact index and compare it to our current letter. Instead of using find index, those ones typically just like look at the first one and then bail. So then, yeah, it only works correctly for the first one, but not the subsequent ones. Okay. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because I missed that. Okay, so we've got our, I guess it was called, okay, keyboard here. We have our color, we have our letter. Now if I do, what did I call this? Letters with colors. This is a larger composable here, or computed. But, you know, to me, it's not really worth breaking up. One thing that you could do potentially is create like constants somewhere that specifies these colors in one place, so that if I want to change the theming or style or whatever, I can just do that in one location versus going back and forth. But, you know, I'm just doing it this way because I can. Okay. Now let's hook this up. Keyboard for row in letters with colors, and key in row. Again, I could probably do, yeah, key.letter should be the same. Key.letter. And this enter and the enter in the back, they get processed in the same way, but they should just like pass through without getting anything changed on them. I don't split up the characters in there, so it should be fine. Like, it's not going to treat these as like individual characters. I was just double checking that because that could be a fun little interesting bug if that were to happen. Okay, we can take this BG gray. So actually by default it is BG gray. And if we guess it, we need to, okay, right. Forgot about that part. Okay. So actually we want to change this. If so by default it's BG gray 200, and if letter how do I want to do this? I don't actually know if I want to do this nested statement here, but at least I can get this working. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to have multiple return statements if I have to make this object here. It doesn't seem as nice to me. And then of course okay, I didn't break anything. I just needed to refresh, and now I can stick on my dynamic class, and away we go. Although I should change the color of the text. So how do I want to do this? I could do, let's just call it style or classes. CSS classes. Text, well, I'm just going to leave that, and then I'll do text white, and text white, and text white. And okay, we're getting close to the end here for me. Turns out that there's more to do here. I did not anticipate that I would finish this thing completely in, you know, an hour, or I don't even know how long I've been going. Will this show me on my stream? I don't know. How long have I been going? Has it been an hour and a half? Look at that. I thought that for whatever reason YouTube would kick me out after an hour, but it hasn't. So, okay, we're going to continue going for a little bit, and then I'm going to be done, and that's going to be that. So mostly CSS stuff in here, and then we're going to have to implement the actual server side stuff another time probably, and actually finish it up. But then we've got the UI basically done. I just need to do that. CSS classes, that's what we got. Okay, perfect. So now we've got our little thing here. We don't have any way of inputting any data yet. We don't have any way of playing the game, but we've got the basic components, UI components set up. We've got this keyboard thing. We can click on it. It'll emit I think what's happening is the emit is if I do this, clear this out, and I click on some things, we've got this whole thing going. I probably just need to send out the letter. I'm wondering why it's logging this pointer event as well, since I'm just passing in this key.letter. Anyway, I think, yeah, maybe we need to, someone mentioned using define emits on here to make it work properly, but we'll look into that for the next time. I think we did some good progress here. We've got some basic stuff going. So the next steps would be actually being able to input the next row, displaying these empty rows. We'll need to update this word grid thing to handle that. Then we need to actually make this interactive so that we can do some inputs, make a guess, do all that kind of stuff, and then make sure that these components are rendered on the server so that we can keep things nice and secure and performant. So the thing is, if we change these file names here to .server, we get that server rendered because we're not really doing anything interactive, so there's nothing really interesting about that. But we are using Nuxt Server Components, which is what the title of this video was. So hope that's not, too much of a bait and switch for you. I wasn't intending to not get to that part, but we'll have to continue this in a part 2, probably next week sometime, and we'll see if we can finish that up in the next session. Thanks for joining me on my first live stream. It's been pretty good. Thanks for some of you jumping in on the chat there, so I didn't feel like I'm just over here on my own. And yeah, catch you next time.